I'm not a techie, but I love tech. I'm not a designer, but I love design. And I particularly love the idea of design thinking, because to me, design thinking is coming up with a story about how you want things to happen. So it's a kind of a story that's supposed to play out in the world. And when we think about the future, that's what we're trying to do. We need that design, we need that imagination, we need that story to get to the future we want to get to. So I want to talk about kind of three aspects of the future. There are many other kind of technologies and things about the future to talk about, but I like to talk about health, education, and cities in particular, because those are the things that when we wake up in the morning, we go to work or we go to school, that have a huge impact on our lives and that we really need to reimagine. So I want to start with health. And let's start with the problem we're trying to tackle in health. This is from the UK, the National Health Service, just mapping all the causes of premature death, including road accidents, whatever. And as you can see, over 80% of them are caused by these 5 chronic conditions: heart cancer, respiratory, digestive, nervous system disorders. And, we're incredible science coming out every day, every week, it seems. But at the end of the day, we're kind of at the mercy of these problems. We're not doing nearly well enough. So these problems all have something in common. We're not born with them. They start at some point in our bodies. Let's say they start at 0, and our job is to prevent them from getting to 100. But the problem is where we start. We start when we feel bad and we go to the doctor. And when that happens, that process may have been happening for years and it may be kind of late in the day. And then the health system kicks in. The health system tries to save the day. But the health system is just working at the end there. And that's what makes it so difficult, so expensive, and not as successful as it should be. So we really need to do something kind of completely different. We need to move the whole thing towards the beginning. It's kind of obvious that if we could detect things early, say a cancer that at the end has stage 4, 10% survival rate. If you catch it at stage 1, it's 90% survival rate. And this is kind of true across the board. So how do we get to this kind of new world? We need 2 things. The first thing we need are biomarkers. Biomarkers are some sign that we have a problem, other than what we feel. We need something that sign much, much earlier. And the other problem is, we may know a great biomarker, but we don't know it's there because we're not taking blood tests every day or every week or every year. So we need something else. We need sensors. And the beauty of this is that the sensors and the data that they collect are really going to be our biomarkers. They're going to find them and we're going to discover the biomarkers and we're going to detect them to save ourselves with the sensors. And that's why I think that all of us, if we meet again, certainly in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, we are all going to be measuring what's going on in our body constantly. And I know that sounds creepy. I know a lot of people are afraid of that. A lot of people think, oh, too much information. But we're going to look back in this time, kind of like the way we look at the world before antibiotics, when people could die of a scratch. We're going to look back with horror at this time when we have no idea what's going on in our bodies. So how's this going to work? I'm just going to give a couple examples of this. This is from an Israeli company that's developed vocal biomarkers. What they do is they just map your voice, and the green line here is a normal voice. The red line is a voice of someone with heart disease. Now, you don't need very fancy algorithms to tell the difference between the green line and the red line here. And this is amazing because it means we don't have to wear any sensor. We're continuously speaking into this voice sensor called our phone. And with just software, we could not just heart disease, but lots of other things we could track, we could discover just with voice. That's health. Now I want to talk about education, which is in some ways even more complicated. We're obsessed with education here, and that's one of the reasons we're a startup nation. But I want to start with the problem of education, which we can tell from 2 points in our histories. The first is the first day of school. Now, these are our daughters. Wendy's sitting here with recognizing. My favorite part of this picture is the green Crocs with the pink sweatpants. It's a real statement, I think. So these are our 3 kids walking to school on the first day of the youngest first day of school. And I don't know about you, but I remember the excitement. I remember the excitement about picking these bags and going to school for the first day. And kids start with so much motivation, so much excitement, so much energy, so much willingness to try anything. They're not afraid. No one's told them that they're bad at math or bad at art. No one's done this to them, marked up a paper full of red. As far as they're concerned, they could do anything. And then we take these kids, and it's kind of downhill from there. This is what happens to their motivation or their engagement from elementary school to high school. And so I think when we think about the future of education, we have to start with the motto of health, which is do no harm. Can we kind of raise this instead of dropping it? And then the other point where you see that we have a problem is at the very end. When you graduate out of the system, whenever you get out of the system, and suddenly you're lost. You have no idea who you are, what you're good at, what you want, and you don't really have the tools it's not just about getting a job, it's about everything. We're not giving people tools for life. So I think actually to solve this, we really need to step back to the very primary idea of what education is for. And I think maybe the way to think about that is to think about what do we want for our children. And this is kind of my random list. We all have our lists. If you quickly kind of think about 4 or 5 things, what you want them to be comfortable with themselves. We want them to be challenged, to be doing something they believe in. Because that's a lot, happiness comes from meaning. We want kids to have meaning. That's where they'll get their happiness. We want them to have supportive family, to be the kind of person who could be supportive. We want them to have a community, to know what it's like to be in a community. And we want them to be part of something bigger than themselves. I think that, again, speaks to the idea of meaning. So it's like, what am I talking about here? How can school have anything to do with all of these great dreams? And I think it can, and I think it must. Right now, education is about knowledge. And because it's just about that, it doesn't really equip us for life. Knowledge is such a teeny part of what we need, and we're not even doing a very good job of that. I think we need 2 other things that we've been groping around for, or actually a lot of people call them 21st century skills, soft skills, life skills. They're like non-cognitive skills, I've even heard. I don't like the word skills at all because it implies like, fixing a car or something. Let's divide them into character and soft skills, or you could call it life skills. Things like character, we need things like curiosity and honesty and courage. We need this to function in life. We need this to get a job. We need this to flourish. We need these things. We also need these kind of horizontal skills. Storytelling. There's a great book I've really been telling everyone to read. It's called Humans Are Underrated. And it's about essentially the future of work. And the bottom line, this kind of spoiler alert here, is he comes up with 3 big skills that we need in a world where AI is going to do everything. He said we need empathy, we need teamwork, and we need storytelling. And why storytelling? Because that's how you change the way people think. That's how you move things. So we need all these skills, and we don't even think that this is part of the job of education to do. So the first kind of design thinking we have to do is to think, yes, this is the job of education. And if we start with that, maybe we can think how to do it. So actually, I've been working with another amazing, I'm not an educator. I've been working with an educator, a real educator, to come up with what we're calling the Israeli School. And it doesn't exist yet, but we already got this name. And we want to combine lots of different elements that I've found in different parts of the world and that exist here. Here's one, it's called the Agora School in Holland. They don't have classrooms, they don't have classes, they don't have curriculum, they don't divide people into age groups. You just go in there and you start doing projects, challenges, but very structured. I really love the way they structure it. You have a mentor who's kind of working with you all the way and forcing you to kind of think about things from 5 different angles and so on. And just look at the school, talk about design. This is how you design a school without all these barriers that are kind of holding us back. The physical space is very important. The person I'm working with, Yaakov Hecht, founded the democratic school system, which now about 2,500 schools around the world in dozens of countries. Started here in Hadera with the first democratic school. And here you see kids voting on something to do with their school. There are a lot of aspects of the kind of the openness of the democratic school, but the part I love that I want to take from is that you create a little civil society. If we want people to be part of a community, to be citizens, we can't teach them that. We have to let them do that. So that's what happens in the democratic school. This is from a place called African Leadership University in Mauritius and now in Rwanda. And these are, they call them 7 meta skills. Those are kind of attempt at defining those 21st century skills I talked about before. And they actually spend the whole first year trying to give kids these kind of schools, and they've been successful at doing it. And I think it's not only an Africa first, it's a global first, and we can learn a lot from it. I highly recommend that you watch this 3-minute video. It's about, I just discovered this myself, it's about a school in Assam, which is one of the most remote parts of India. These kids, like the kid in the yellow shirt there, he's a teacher. He's teaching that younger kid. That older kid probably worked in a stone quarry before this. So what they're doing is they're paying, these kids are child laborers in stone quarries, and they're paying them what they would have earned in the stone quarry, which is a tiny amount, to be teachers, to teach the younger kids. And what you get, the teacher gets a lot more from that than the student. The teacher not only learns what they're teaching a lot more, one of them talks about how he learned English and he learned how to read by teaching it. But also you learn responsibility. You have the pride of being in charge of something at a very young age. That's critical. That's even more important than the knowledge. Now we're on the Israeli side here. This is Sofim, this is Israeli Scouts. Those of you, a lot of nods of recognition here. This is from something called Machnak, the this summer camp where like 1,000 kids just kind of converge on a forest and this kind of city there, and there are no adults. What they call adults are the 25-year-old who's at the gate, who's like post-army. That's the adult. But basically, these kids are running everything. Again, the older kids are taking care of the younger kids. Our Minister of Education tells a story where he and another 16-year-old took out 60 10-year-olds for a hike by themselves. You know, in the US, you could get arrested for that. Here, it's like considered normal. And that's because we have this kind of trajectory where we try to give kids more freedom, more responsibility, because we know that at the end of the day, they're going to be in the army. Just now we've had this new thing, which is a gap year pre-army program, which is incredible. Our kids have all been through this. And there, the challenges and the responsibility and the democracy step up. And they do navigation and they hike around the country. And what kills me also about this is that, these kids who never like studying, they will study overnight. They'll study their heads off. And why? Because they don't have to. It's kind of that simple. Okay, so I'm running out of time here. So this is our Israeli school. All the elements we're putting together. Stay tuned. So schools should be about challenges and responsibility. I think those are the key components that will help get us all these kinds of skills. Now I want to talk about cities. Here's our problem. We don't have to explain the problem with cities. That was from China. When I speak in China, a lot of people nodding there at that picture. People are desperate. This is, driverless car. We think, we hope, we pray that driverless cars are going to be the solution, but they're not. Elon Musk, who's building driverless cars, says, if cars are more available, if they're cheaper and so on, we're going to use them more, and it's actually going to make traffic worse. There's a big debate about that, but I think it's clear, especially since the driverless car industry is kind of planning what to do with you while you're sitting in traffic for hours, is an indication that it's not going to solve traffic. So this is actually from Israel. And this, so the reason we have traffic is because our system is two-dimensional. This is not typical, thank God, but we have a two-dimensional system that's full of intersection, which means we're going to have gridlock. It's going to get saturated. And that's the big problem, the architecture of the system. So now I'm going to show you a 2-minute video. It's going to take up all my time, but we'll do it.
The city. It's where we live, love, and create. Yet as life moves faster and faster, we move slower and slower. Traffic is just getting worse, and driverless cars won't save us, because the problem is not the driver, it's the car. It's been a century, and it is time to move on. SkyTram is the first public transit system that's as personal as a car. It will unclog our cities and transform our lives. With SkyTran, there's no schedule. Its predictive artificial intelligence knows when you need your ride. Stations are so narrow they can fit over sidewalks, so they are always just a short walk away. SkyTran's revolutionary magnetic levitation technology enables you to fly on a cushion of air. Traveling in a SkyPod is so quiet and smooth that you can comfortably work or just simply relax.
So I've prepared a presentation.
SkyPods don't need to pick up or drop off other passengers, so there are absolutely no stops on the way to your destination. In the city, SkyPods can fly over busy streets at 50 miles an hour and speed up to 200 miles an hour between cities. With some stations built directly into office buildings, a 2-hour commute can be reduced to 20 minutes. SkyTran's low cost and simple construction allows for many more lines than conventional public transport systems, which in turn allows for greater capacity. Per mile, SkyTran is 1/10 the cost of light rail and 1/100th the cost of a subway. With its speed and high capacity, SkyTran can bring an end to traffic. A dream come true. The next step will be something we've never even dreamed of: transforming streets into parks, cafes, and markets. Without cars, we can breathe, create, and wander. After 100 years, it's time for a change.
This is a company I've been obsessed with for a long time and very involved with. I'm not going to explain it too much, just that I know people look at this and they think, it's kind of a toy. How does it have the capacity to carry millions of people like cars do? And the answer is that each one of those lines has the capacity of 3 lanes of highway. So that's a lot. But even more so, it's 3D. Those intersections between lines, lines can cross and you don't have to stop, or you can change lines again without stopping. So it means everything can just flow, and that's where the full capacity comes from. But I want to talk about how this relates to design in cities. Here's our real challenge. If we can get rid of cars, which cities around the world are trying to do. This is one city in Spain that turned a busy street into a park. This is Barcelona, which is doing something called super blocks, where they just get rid of the cars in some streets and try to concentrate them. This is for 40 years, this has been happening in Bogota, and it's happening now all over the world. They take 1 day a week and say just bicycles. What a dream. So what's happening around the world is we're desperate to get rid of the cars, but we can't because we have no alternative. Once we have an alternative transportation system, we can start imagining a city of the future that doesn't look like this. This is from The Fifth Element. All these cities of the future in our minds are horrible. Even the kind of nicer looking ones are kind of horrible. What is this? I mean, we need to start reimagining the city as we take it back from cars. So I want to leave you with that thought that design is really imagination, and that the problem here is not technology. We have the technology. The obstacle, what we're missing, is the imagination, the vision, the design to see where we want to go so we can try to go there. Thank you.